Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Quartet Lesson 2, Part 1 live stream. Tonight we're going to be covering the formal te form, teiku and teikuru, a different form of those, shika nai, koto ni suru, and ki expressions, or expressions with ki. Pun is intended, 100% there. All right, these are the colors we're going to be using in the quartet lessons. We've got light blue for the grammar section points, and these are the colors for any vocabulary that does not show up in quartet yet, marked by their JLPT. Before we jump into everything and say hello to everyone, you know I've always got to do this first. This is the ToKini Andy website. Here we have lessons on Genki 1, 2, and quartet. Right now, if we jump into the quartet course, which is included in the $10 per month membership to this website, we've got vocabulary videos, we've got the stream cuts, we've got bonus grammar sentence videos, which allow you to shadow Yuki's Japanese and repeat after it. And there's extra sentences that aren't in these live streams that I go into a little bit more detail on, so you can get a little bit further into each of these grammar points. I've also got sections to help you track whether you're getting the readings or workbook done. If you come in here, click on readings and say, hey, I'm done with this one, mark as complete. And it says, good job, move on to the next one. Mark that as complete. Then if we jump out into the Quartet 1 section, we see I've completed 3 out of 18 lessons, and I can pop out to my courses, and that shows up here as getting slowly finished with that. In the Genki lessons, we have vocabulary videos, grammar stream cuts, bonus sentences and grammar, textbook practice, listening and shadowing practice, and all of the tests for both Genki 1 and 2, as well as links and extra resources. So there's tons of stuff on the ToKini Andy website, so please check that out if you get a chance. How is it going, everyone? It's good to see you tonight. Let's go ahead and jump into the formal te form, the quote formal te form, and I'll get to why I'm doing quotation marks when I say that in a moment. So let's go back for a second. So the te form, you know, can be used to connect multiple sentences together. So you can take one sentence and connect it to another sentence using the te form like and. Now, this quote formal te form is only used for that, okay? You can't use this for te kudasai or te kureru or things like that, right? This is only the te form that is used as and. Now, quartet makes it out to be the formal version of te. That's not quite right. You can actually use the te form and this together, and I'll get to in some of the example sentences how you can do that and why you might do that. But the grammar dictionaries actually point out that this is more of a written form. It's not so much formal. Like, you're not necessarily going to use this in formal situations. It's just you're more likely to see it in writing than you are hear it in spoken conversation. So that's why some people seem to think of it like it is formal, and why quartet presents it as formal. The thing is that a lot of the example sentences in quartet and just around, they're actually sentences that end in short form. So I feel like that's going to be confusing to a lot of people, because they'll be like, well, why is this the formal te form, but it ends in a short form, which means that it's casual. And that's why, because it's not actually formal. It's a written form, generally speaking, although some people do use it in conversation from time to time. So just keep that in mind. It's mostly written, and it's the and version of the te form. That's the main thing I want to get across from this portion of the lesson. The main point of this section is to recognize it, because unless you plan on writing, if you plan on writing or doing the writing sections, you'll want to use this because it sounds nicer than the te form in writing. So yeah, this is to recognize in writing, but if you don't plan on writing, you don't need to necessarily learn how to use it. You just have to know how to recognize it. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to make it. So first we have verbs that are in the te form. If we want to make the quote written te form, I'm going to call it the written te form from now instead of the formal te form. We just take the mas stem, and that's it. It's just the mas stem. That is it. All you need is the mas stem. You just end the first sentence with that, and it acts just like the te form. That means and. Then you have the next sentence after it, and you end that however you see fit. If you were using te iru, so te ite, right? Te ite, a verb in the present continuous te form, you would change that to te ori. So for example, tabete ori is the same as tabete ite and something something, right? Now, the book throws in with these the naide version of this. So tabe naide something something, which means without doing this, I did this, right? And it combines these together, which I mean, I can see why they do it, because naide is basically the negative te form. The difference here is that for this form, this more formal form, this one's not necessarily written. This one is actually used in conversation quite frequently. So to make this more quote, formal version of naide, we take the nai stem of a verb and add zu ni. So for example, if we just use taberu, it's just tabezu ni. So without eating, I did something. I feel like tabezu ni emphasizes the fact that I didn't do this a little bit more than tabenaide. Perhaps it's a little bit more polite, but I feel like it's a little bit more emphasizing than naide. And it's in conversation all the time. This is not necessarily a written form. Shinaide is here because it's just slightly different than the regular naide one. If you were to make this zu form, you just say sezu ni. So benkyou sezu ni something something. So without studying, something something, right? Now, adjectives, you can also use their te form to connect sentences or other adjectives together. So for example, tanoshikute, something something, right? Well, to use the quote the written form of this, or the more formal form, you just cut the te. So it would be tanoshiku, something something. And you'll see lots of examples in the example sentences that'll make this make a little bit more sense, I feel like. So let's go ahead and jump into the example sentences to sort of give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. Our first one is, 私は学校に勤め、Yuki wa uchi de hataraite imasu. So here you can see the te form, if we were to use the regular te form of this, would be 私は学校に勤めて、Yuki wa ie de or uchi de hataraite imasu. I'm working at a school and Yuki works at home. So this is just it's just and. And if you were to see this sentence, it would be most likely in writing. I'm probably not going to say this, even in a formal situation. Even in a formal situation, I'd probably say, 私は学校に勤めて、Yuki wa uchi de hataraite imasu. That's probably what I would say. I wouldn't shorten it to this. It's more of a written form. 材料を混ぜ、オーブンを100度に設定して、混ぜた材料をiremasu. Mix the ingredients, set the oven to 100 degrees, and then put in the ingredients you mixed. Now, here we've used this quote written form as well as the te form. You can do this. This is actually something that will happen from time to time. And the grammar dictionary sort of explains this as if you're giving steps in a process in which one step needs to be finished first before the next step can happen, you need to use the regular te form. Now, the reason I don't need to use the regular te form for the first part, 材料を混ぜ、オーブンを100度に設定して is because I don't necessarily need to mix the ingredients before I turn the oven on. Turning the oven on is not dependent upon me mixing ingredients. So that doesn't matter. But if the next step is dependent on the step before, apparently you're supposed to use the te form instead of this written form. Whether or not people actually follow that rule all the time in real life, I'm sure they don't. I'm sure people make mistakes with this all the time. On ingredients, like on recipes, most of the time it's the short form. I'm not sure if they are always combined this way, if the next step is dependent on the previous one. So like putting the stuff in the oven is dependent on setting the oven to 100 degrees first. So here we have to use the te form, because the next one is dependent. Whether or not in the recipe they would actually follow that grammatical rule, I don't know. But in the dictionary, it points it out that way. Quartet doesn't mention this. I just thought I'd mention it to you. You'll see these combined sometimes, okay? But they mean the same thing, right? 混ぜて、オーブンを100度に設定して、混ぜた材料を入れます. That would be the same. So you could use just the te form in both of them, or you could probably just change this to 設定し、混ぜた材料を入れます would probably be okay. But someone might be picky about it if it was in your writing. All right, here we have a te iru. So te ite is what would have been there in a regular conversational form. Let's check the sentence. 友達は外国に住んでおり、最近あんまり話す機会がありません。友達は外国に住んでおり。The regular form of this would be 友達は外国に住んでいて、最近あんまり話す機会がありません。Kikai is opportunity, so I don't have many opportunities to speak with them recently. My friend is living abroad and we don't have many opportunities to speak recently. We have two sentences here with the zu form, 食べずに仕事に行きました. I went to work without eating. Now, the regular form of this would be 食べないで仕事に行きました. I went to work without eating. This one is not necessarily written form. I would probably say this one, honestly. More than 食べないで仕事に行きました. I would prefer to say 食べずに仕事に行きました. Even in conversation. I like using ずに actually quite a bit. Especially when I want to emphasize the fact that I didn't do that thing a little bit more than the part that I did do. Like 食べずに仕事に行きました puts the emphasis way on to 食べる, the fact that I didn't eat, as opposed to the emphasis being on 仕事に行きました. So same with the next sentence. 勉強せずにテストを受けた. So yeah, the zu comes after the nai stem of a verb. So for example, if it was a regular godan verb, let's think of one. Sunde is a godan verb. So sumu, suma nai de. So sumazu ni is how you would make this for that. Sumazu ni. 勉強せずに suru becomes せずに. 勉強せずにテストを受けた. I took the test without studying. And of course, the regular version of this would have been 勉強しないでテストを受けた. Okay, I've got a couple more examples. We've got an adjective down here and some other stuff, so I'll get into more examples in the dialogue. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Last week, Ando-san got mad at Andy because he told Yuki that he was angry at him or something. I don't know. Yuki went out drinking with Ando-san instead of Andy, and Andy wasn't invited. That's what happened. Okay. 飲まずに書いた. なんで安藤さんはもう酔っ払ってたんだよ。店に着いたらってこと？うん、そうか。まあ、彼は割とお金に気をつけているから、飲みに行く前にちょっと飲むんだよ。お金を貯金し、お酒を楽しく。毎日最高が彼のスローガンらしいよ。なんか素敵に聞こえるけど、なんかおかしい。Alright, let's read that at full speed. 飲まずに書いた。なんで？安藤さんはもう酔っ払ってたんだよ。店に着いたらってこと？うん、そうか。まあ、彼は割とお金に気をつけているから、飲みに行く前にちょっと飲むんだよ。お金を貯金し、お酒を楽しく、毎日最高が彼のスローガンらしいよ。なんか素敵に聞こえるけど、なんかおかしい。Alright, let's go over the English. We've got 飲まずに書いた. I went home without drinking. This is just the zu form, right? 飲む becomes 飲ま. That's the nai form. 飲まない. You don't have the nai there. 飲まずに書いた. I went home without drinking. なんで? Huh? Why? 安藤さんはもう酔っ払ってたんだよ。酔っ払う is to be intoxicated, drunk. 安藤さんはもう酔っ払ってたんだよ。安藤さん was already drunk is why. So that is why is the んだ, right? んです. The explanation んです。店に着いたらってこと? You mean when you arrived at the shop? So that たら is when you arrived at the shop. 店に着いたらってこと? 着く means to arrive at something, by the way. Yeah. Alright, this is a very long sentence. Let's go through it. そうか, I see. まあ, well, 彼は割とお金に気をつけている. So, 気をつけている is something we're going to go over later in the lesson. It's section 5, so stick around for that if you're interested to learn more about it. But it means to be careful of. In this case, he's being careful of money. Warito means more than you would expect. I probably should have colored this some color. JLPT N2. Okay, so that should have been JLPT N2 color, an orangey color, but don't worry about that. Warito means more than you would expect is what it means. It's a very useful little word. More than you would expect, he's careful about money. 気をつけている. He's being careful about money. So, から、飲みに行く前に before going to drink, ちょっと飲むんだよ. Explanation, he drinks a little. Now this is a quotation. お金を貯金し save money and お酒を楽しく enjoy alcohol 毎日最高 every day is awesome が彼のスローガンらしいよ is his slogan apparently. So that apparently or I hear that save money, enjoy alcohol every day is awesome is his slogan. So let's read that whole thing. I see. Well, he actually is careful about money more than you would expect. So before he goes drinking, he drinks a bit, you know? I hear that save money, enjoy alcohol, every day is awesome is his slogan. Very Ando-san. So because it's like a slogan, so if you were just saying something, like if you were to say this out loud, what you would probably say is, let's go ahead and jump back up to that quickly. お金を貯金してお酒を楽しんで毎日最高楽しんで you'd probably use the verb 楽しんで but because it's a slogan, so a slogan in Japanese is the same as slogan in English, right? You don't have a perfect sentence necessarily for a slogan. You have a catchphrase or something that is sort of stylized. So 楽しく is more stylized than 楽しんで, right? So sure, you could do that, but this is a bit more stylized, a bit more slogan-like. ね、お金を貯金し、お酒を楽しく、毎日最高. It sounds dramatic, stylized. That's all. Kakikukeko is more, Yuki was mentioning how in Japanese it gives a better impression than mamimumemo. So generally in like a slogan like this, you wouldn't use mamimumemo. And someone would understand that o particle what is implying is you're enjoying drinking it, obviously, right? So, 楽しく飲む, it's just a stylized slogan using those different points. But yeah, I understand why the o particle would make it a little bit confusing. なんか素敵に聞こえるけど、なんかおかしい. Like, it sounds wonderful, but something is weird about it. So, なんか can be used like the American English like. So you just throw it anywhere to be like something something. But it also means something. So it can actually be used to mean something. So like なんか素敵に聞こえるけど it sounds wonderful, but けどなんかおかしい something is off or something is weird about it. All right, let's jump into question time. Today's question time questions, I don't know if all of them are, I can't remember, but most of them I'm going to be doing in Japanese. If you don't understand what the question is, let us know in chat and I will translate it, but we're going to try to do it in 100% Japanese, okay? So the question is, 今日の自分の行動を説明してください. Here's an example. メールを印刷し、部長にファックスをしました. Fax is usually written in English in Japanese like this. If you type it in Japanese and then press space, it pops up in English as fax. So the question, 今日の自分の行動を説明してください. If you don't know what 行動 means like your activity or what you did, your actions. That's what that means. 説明 means to explain. 説明してください. And of course, please use the written or formal te form to explain two of those things. All right. Has begun to with te kuru and will begin to with te iku. Now, we already covered te iku and te kuru a long time ago, I believe in Genki 1. And te iku meant to go and do something, and te kuru meant to come and do something, right? Or to go and then come back. Like ite kuru means to go and come back. And te iku means to go and do that thing. This is a different grammar point. This is something completely different. Totally different. Forget about that one for now. And let's talk about this one. So, te kuru means has begun to do something in the past up until now. So, in the past, began to do something and is still doing it up until now. Or is beginning to, do something. Starting in the past up until now. Generally, you're going to be using verbs that imply change. Quartet has a few examples here. We've got futoru, which means to gain weight. Yaseru, which means to lose weight. Fueru, which means to increase. Heru, which means to decrease. Naru, which means to become. And nareru, which means to get used to. There's more, but those are just some examples of verbs that imply change already. Those are the ones that are generally going to be used with te kuru. So for example, futotte kita. So by that I mean verbs that imply change within the verb. So like futoru and yaseru. Futoru means to gain weight. Yaseru means to lose weight. So within the verb, there's implied change, right? Fueru means to increase, or fuyasu means the transitive version of increase, to increase something. Heru means to decrease, and the transitive version, so the one that you do, is herasu, to decrease something. So those imply a change of some sort, right? Herasu means a change from having a lot to a little, so that implies change. Whereas taberu is just a straight action. There's no change involved, you're eating. So that's the difference. A verb that implies change, one of those. Another point here is that tekuru is usually in the past tense because you began to do something in the past. So futotte kita means that I began to gain weight. Futotte kita. So from the past up until now, I began to gain weight. Futotte kita. Teiku implies that you will begin to do something or are beginning to do something now, right? Also with change verbs. So, 痩せていく means I'm going to lose weight, or I will begin to lose weight from now into the future. This is an ongoing thing that I'm going to be doing. The non-change verbs, you can use verbs that don't imply change, but you're going to be using them with a grammar point from last time, which is yo ni naru, and you change that to tekuru. So yo ni natte kuru. We'll show some examples later, but for example, you might use the potential form here. 食べれるようになってくる or 食べれるようになってきた. So for example, I never was able to eat natto. I wasn't able to eat natto for my first 2 years in Japan, and then I became able to eat it over time. I became able to eat it over time. That's when you would use teikuru. But 食べる or 食べれる does not imply change. So you can't really say 食べれてきた. It doesn't really work. You need to say 食べれる, so the do version of it, 食べれるようになってきた. ようになる means to become generally able to do if you're using it with the potential form. Became able to do something. てくる. So I became able to eat natto over time from in the past. 納豆食べれるようになってきた. And kuru is generally going to be the past tense. If I want to say I'm gonna become able to eat 納豆を食べれるようになっていく. I'm going to become able to eat 納豆 in the future, starting now. From here on out, I'm gonna go and do this. できるようになった means you became able to do it, but it's a point in time when you became able to do it. I became able to do it here. Whereas なってきた implies that you started becoming able to do something, perhaps, if you're using できるようになってきた. You started becoming able to do something up until now, and maybe now you can do it. You might not actually be able to do the thing yet. You're still working on it, but できるようになってきた. I've started to become able to do something, is what that means. Versus できるようになった means I became able to do it. So there's a big difference. It's not big. It's sort of subtle, I guess. But yeah, できるようになった. You became able to do it. You can do it now because you became able to do it. できるようになってきた means over time you've been slowly becoming able to do something. Starting at some point in time doesn't really matter when. And maybe now you can do it. But it's emphasizing sort of that journey from not being able to do it to becoming able to do it. And now maybe you're not perfect at it yet, but you can kind of do it. You've become able to do it a bit. Let's look at some example sentences. It's not that bad. And it's also very, very, very common. So it's one you're going to want to work on a bit. All right. 日が短くなってきた. The days have begun to get short, haven't they? 日が短くなってきたね. Literally, this means the sun has begun to become short, hasn't it? Now, this is sort of, it's not a set phrase, but 日が短くなる, it sounds like the sun has become short. But that's just how people say that the days are becoming shorter. Okay? 日が短くなる means days become shorter. 短くなる. To say kita, right? It means that the days have begun to get shorter. Oh, like yesterday, it's just getting shorter and shorter over time. If you were to cut off the kita and say 日が短くなった, it would mean that today the day became short. The kita means the days have begun to get short. So that have begun is where the kuru, the come part, comes in. So 日が短くなってきたね. That kita is has begun to get shorter. So it's a very important part of the sentence. 最近ちょっとだけ痩せてきた. Recently, I've come to lose just a little weight. So you could also translate that kita as come to do something, right? Recently, I've come to lose a little weight. You could also translate this, of course, as recently, I've begun to lose a little weight. So you don't just suddenly lose weight, right? It happens over time. So at some point in time, I started doing something that made me start losing weight, or from some point in time, I wasn't losing weight, and then I started losing weight, and I've been losing weight from that point up until now, this point in time. Yasete kita. Okay, next one is te iku. So begin to increase opportunities. This is very similar to te hajimeru, to begin to do something. Very similar to that. This one, te iku. I did a video on te hajimeru a long time ago, but I think it's still pretty good. So if you want to get an idea of how that is used, you can go ahead and check that video out. Maybe I'll put a link up in the description or over in the corner. One, I put out the stream cut. But anyway, this is very similar to that. 日本語を話す機会を増やしていきたいよ。増やす. So 増える is one of the ones that Quartet mentions, and it's an intransitive verb, which means to increase. So you don't act on anything, it just is the verb to increase. 増やす is a transitive verb that means I will make something increase. So it's a transitive verb, right? You do something. 増やしていきたい means I want to increase something. I want to begin to increase something. 増やしていく means begin to increase something. So I'm not going to suddenly increase my opportunities right now, or even right tomorrow. I'm going to start increasing them over time from now. So 日本語を話す機会. That's what I'm going to be increasing over time. 日本語を話す機会. Opportunities to speak Japanese を増やしていく. Begin to increase. But in this case, I'm using the Thai want to. 増やしていきたいよ. I want to begin to increase opportunities to speak Japanese, you know? 日本はゆっくり変わっていくと思う. I think that Japan will begin to change slowly. ゆっくり. Right? Japan's not going to change overnight. It didn't change today necessarily. 変わった. If you were to just say 変わった, it would mean that it changed. It happened at some point. I don't know when, but it has changed. If you want to say it's going to begin to change, 変わっていく. If it began to change in the past, man, you've changed. You've begun changing. 変わってきた. They changed over time from the past to now. All right. A little bit weird when I actually say it all out in English. I understand it sounds a little bit weird, but you're going to hear this so much that you'll get used to it, I promise. Let's go ahead and jump into the dialogue. I'll read it slowly one time, then at full speed, and I'll get to the English translations, and then we'll do question time. まだ一緒に飲むことにする? あんまりいいアイデアじゃないって思ってきた。そうだね。でも飲めるようになっていきたいでしょ? まあ、もっと飲めるようになりたいけど、やめようかな。俺は安藤さんと飲まなくなったら、仕事でもっと集中できるようになってきたから、もうお酒を完全にやめようかな。いいな。今週仕事はダメだったな。はい、full speed。まだ一緒に飲むことにする？あんまりいいアイディアじゃないって思ってきた。そうだね。でも飲めるようになっていきたいでしょ？まあ、もっと飲めるようになりたいけど、やめようかな。俺は安藤さんと飲まなくなったら、仕事でもっと集中できるようになってきたから、もうお酒を完全にやめようかな。いいな。今週仕事はダメだったな。Let's go with the English translation. まだ一緒に飲むことにする? Are you going to decide to drink with him still? Now, we covered ことにする back in Genki 2, but Quartet is actually covering this again to contrast it with ようにする, which we covered in the last lesson. So we'll go over that a little bit later in the lesson. まだ一緒に飲むことにする? Are you going to decide to drink with him still? あんまりいいアイディアじゃないって思ってきた. I have begun to think that it's not such a good idea. So the same situation that you might say, I've begun to think such and such a thing in English, you're going to use 思ってきた in Japanese. I've begun to think that it's not such a good idea. あんまりいいアイディアじゃないって思ってきた. That's the important thing. This is just like the English began to think or began to do something. So those are the situations you're going to use it in. そうだね. Fair enough. でも飲めるようになっていきたいでしょ? But you want to start to become able to drink, right? まあ、もっと飲めるようになりたいけど、やめようかな. Well, I want to become able to drink more. 飲めるようになりたいけど. But maybe I'll quit. So here we're using ていく、ようになっていきたい. You want to become able to start to become able to drink more, right? So you're not going to be able to become able to drink more overnight. It's not something that happens once. You have to practice, right? Just like anything else. So 飲めるようになっていきたい. If it's going to take time and you need to start soon, you haven't started yet, ていく is what you're going to use there. Long sentence here. 俺は安藤さんと飲まなくなったら When I stop drinking with 安藤さん、仕事でもっと集中できるようになってきたから I began to become able to focus more at work. から So お酒を完全にやめようかな. I'm thinking I may completely quit alcohol. いいな. Lucky. 今週仕事はダメだったな. This week work sucked. Question time. 健康のためにやってきたことを教えてください. 健康のためにやってきたこと or してきたことを教えてください. Example. 健康のために週に3回筋トレをやってきた. So this example of what I want you to tell me says, for the purpose of my health, 3 times a week, I have begun to lift weights 3 times a week. I have begun to lift weights 3 times a week. That's the important part. Have begun. Yeah. So 健康のためにやってきたことを教えてください. So I'm going to give you the English for this one just in case people are confused. For the purpose of your health, what is something that you've begun to do, that you began to do in the past up until now? So something you've been doing, basically. Please let us know. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Only with Shikanai. This was covered, as Mengkong pointed out in chat, in Genki 2, I believe. So it's not going to be anything super new for you guys. But let's go ahead and cover it anyway, because some people will be new. Shikanai means only a small number of something. Only is generally what the meaning is, but it also means nothing but something. In the case of a number and a counter plus shikanai, it means only a small number of something or nothing but this number of things. So it's emphasizing the small amount of something. Shikanai can be on its own. Nai is just the negative of aru. So shikanai means have nothing but this thing or have only this thing. But you can also put verbs in here in their negative form. So shika tabenai means eat nothing but this thing, for example. Number counter shika tabenai, for example. Ikko shika tabenai. I'll only eat one, or I'll eat nothing but one. And that's emphasizing that I can only eat one. I can't eat more than that, for example. Only with a noun implies that nothing but that one thing can do whatever the verb is, or, well, you'll see with the example sentences. It's going to make way more sense with the example sentences. So let's go ahead and jump into ones with a number and a counter first. 昨日、会社に2人しかいなかった. Yesterday there was only, nothing but, 2 people at the company. So 2人しかいなかった. 2人しかなかった would be incorrect because they are living things, so you need to use いる. いない to mean they're not there. しかいなかった. 二人しかいなかった. There was nothing but two people at the company, or there was only two people in the company is generally how it would be translated, but it's emphasizing it with nothing but does have the sort of feeling of shikanai a little bit better when translated in English. Next sentence, 仕事まで5分しかかからない. So here we're using another verb in this place. 5分しかかからない. かかる is to take time. So 5分しかかからない means it only takes 5 minutes. And it's emphasizing, shikanai is emphasizing that it's a short amount of time. 5分 is short, don't worry about it. 5分しかかからないよ. It only takes 5 minutes to get to work. Now let's do some nouns. So 今日納豆しか食べなかった. So today I didn't eat anything but natto. I didn't eat anything but natto, or I ate only natto, but didn't eat anything but sort of, I don't know, it has that sort of nuance of shikanai more in my mind. So that's why I tend to use that when I'm translating shikanai. Today I didn't eat anything but natto. Nattoしか食べなかった. Next one is 日本の中でしか旅行したことがありません. So you can have quite a bit between shika and the nai. This is the more formal nai, ありません. That's a lot, right? But this is saying I have only ever traveled within Japan. 日本の中でしか旅行したことがありません. So it's treating 日本の中で within Japan as its own little noun. しか旅行したことがない. Yeah. したことがある, for those of you who don't remember, means to have the experience of doing something or to have done something in the past. So したことがない means I've never done that before. So 旅行したことがない means I've never traveled, right? So しか日本の中でしか旅行したことがありません. I've only ever traveled within Japan. Now let's jump into the dialogue. I'll read it slowly once and at full speed. Then we'll go over the English translations and we'll get to question time. 大変だった? Remember we were talking about Yuki's work. Yuki's work was terrible last week apparently. 大変だった? 大変だった. 忙しくてお昼には5分しか休憩取れなかった. やだね。なんでそんなに忙しいの? 会社は新しいパソコンを買ってくれたんだ。よかったじゃん。でも使える人は私しかいないので、みんなに新しいパソコンの使い方を教えなきゃ。Full speed. 大変だった?大変だった。忙しくてお昼には5分しか休憩取れなかった。やだね。なんでそんなに忙しいの? 会社は新しいパソコンを買ってくれたんだ。よかったじゃん。でも使える人は私しかいないので、みんなに新しいパソコンの使い方を教えなきゃ。大変だった? It was tough? 大変だった. It was tough. You could also translate this as just yes. Like in English, I suppose saying again, it was tough. In English adds more emphasis, but generally this would just be translated as yes. 大変だった. 忙しくて I was busy and お昼には5分しか休憩取れなかった. So 休憩取る means to take a break. I could only take a 5-minute break, or I could take nothing but a 5-minute break. So the emphasis is on how short that is. 嫌だね. That sucks. なんでそんなに忙しいの? Why are you so busy? That no, by the way, in case you don't know, I don't remember if that's covered in Genki. I think it might be covered in like a side note in Genki, one of those little things at the end of the lesson. No is the casual, usually in feminine speech, but guys use it sometimes too. I used it a lot. It's the question marker, sort of. It's used like a question marker in casual speech sometimes. Why are you so busy? なんでそんなに忙しいの? 会社は新しいパソコンを買ってくれたんだ because the company bought new computers for us. よかったじゃん. That's good, isn't it? じゃん is a shortened version of じゃない. よかったじゃん means that's good, isn't it? でも、使える人は私しかいない。But no one but me can use them. ので、so, みんなに新しいパソコンの使い方を教えなきゃいけない。Of course, it's cut off. So I must or I have to teach everyone how to use the new computers. Oh, ouch. This is semi-based on a true story. Semi. Question time. 家の中で数が少なくなったものは何ですか？家の中で数が少なくなったものは何ですか？ I'll give you the English translation just in case. What is something in your house that you're running low on? That's what that would be. 数が少なくなったもの。A thing that you're running low on. For example, 牛乳があと少ししかない。卵が1個しかない。クッキーが1つしかない。クッキーが1つしかない。So use しかない to let us know what's one thing in your house that you're running low on. Are there any differences between dake and shikanai? Thank you, Kalam. Dake means only. It just means only. It doesn't necessarily put any emphasis on the thing being a small amount, whereas shikanai, the emphasis is all on it being a small amount. Banana shikanai is putting the emphasis on the fact that that's all we've got. All we have is bananas, whereas dake is saying, well, we've got bananas. Banana dake wa aru. Like, we've got bananas. So that's good. Whereas shikanai is like, banana shikanai. We only have bananas. So yeah, it's the emphasis on negative versus positive there. Like, banana dake wa aru. You know, we've got bananas, guys. But banana shikanai. Oh, we're in trouble, man. All we've got is bananas. So it's that that's sort of there's a mood there, right? It's a mood. I'd say that's what the big difference is. Let's cut that into the stream cut. Bananas in chat, everyone. Bananas in chat. All right, our next one is something we've also covered in Genki 2, and that is decide to or make it a rule to withことにする. We've already covered this one, so it shouldn't be too complicated, but we're going to contrast it a little bit with ようにする and ようにしている. Just a little bit. That's why it's being used in this lesson, to sort of contrast those together. So, to use ことにする, or which means decide to do something or determined to do something, we take the do or the ない form of a verb, so the dictionary form, or its negative, and ことにする, make it a rule to, so something that you're determined to continue doing regularly as a habit, and you make it a rule to do it, right? Is the, once again, do dictionary form or ない form of a verb with ことにしている. So the present continuous of ことにする. ことにしている. So it's a habit. I'm doing it all the time. I'm determined to do it. Very firm decision. The difference between ようにしている, which we covered last time, and ことにしている, is that ようにしている, which I mentioned a lot in the last one, doesn't necessarily mean that you're succeeding at the thing. It means that you're doing your best to do that thing. You want to make that a habit, and you're doing your best, right? But ことにしている, you're doing it, man. You're determined. It's a firm decision. You're doing it every day. That's your habit. Eh? So you make it a rule. So this one is much more firm than ようにしている. それを言わないことにする. I'm determined to not say that. I'm determined to not say that. So I've been liking the translation of this. I'm determined a little bit better than I decided to not say that. Either one would be fine, but I'm determined to not say that sort of has that feeling in my mind. So それを言わないことにする. I'm determined to not say that, or I've decided to not say that. Or I will decide to not say that. 明日早く行くことにします. I am determined to go early tomorrow. And it's a very firm decision. Like, you're gonna go early tomorrow if you say this. I'm going early tomorrow. It's like that. ジムの後にプロテインを飲むことにしています. I make it a rule to drink protein after the gym. So this one is, it's a rule. If I were to say, ジムの後にプロテインを飲むようにしています, you're still probably doing it every time, but you're just doing your best. You might not be getting it done every time. You might not be drinking those protein shakes after every time you go to the gym. In this one, you are. You're determined. It's a rule. You always drink a protein shake after the gym. That's what this sentence implies. 月に1回お寿司を食べることにしています。I make it a rule to eat sushi once per month. Yeah, sure. We do pretty much eat sushi once every month, but it's not a rule. I feel like if we went 1 month without eating, it wouldn't be a big deal. So for us, if we were to say this, we'd probably use ようにしています because, right, 月に1回お寿司を食べるようにしています because we do our best to eat sushi once a month. If it was us, real us, right, that's probably what we would go with. But the person who's saying this sentence, I eat sushi once a month. It's a rule. I have to do it. Okay. And that's it. We've already covered this in Genki too, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's very much like our yo ni shiteiru. So I have a couple more examples in the dialogue. We'll jump into that. I'll read it slowly one time. Then at full speed, we'll get to question time. No, then I'll go over the English translation and we'll get to question time. All right, here we go. まあ、でも、新しいパソコンだから、今後仕事は早くなるでしょう。違います。確かに、新しいパソコンだけど、もちろんゴミなパソコンですよ。前とほとんど変わりはないよ。そうか。やっぱりやめることにした方がいいんじゃない？そうだね。近いうちにやめることにします。Full speed。まあでも、新しいパソコンだから今後仕事は早くなるでしょう。違います。確かに新しいパソコンだけど、もちろんゴミなパソコンですよ。前とほとんど変わりはないよ。そうか。やっぱりやめることにした方がいいんじゃない？そうだね。近いうちにやめることにします。Sorry, let's go over the English translation. And then I'll get to your questions and question time immediately after that. Alright, まあ。でも新しいパソコンだから今後仕事は早くなるでしょう。Well, but they're new computers, so from now on, 今後 from now on, work will get faster, right? 仕事は早くなるでしょう。違います。確かに新しいパソコンだけど、もちろんゴミなパソコンですよ。Nope. 違います means I disagree or nope. 確かにYou are correct. 新しいパソコンだけど they are new computers, but もちろん of course ゴミなパソコンですよ they are garbage or they are garbage computers. 前とほとんど変わりはないよ there is not much difference from before. Not much is ほとんど or yeah, basically the same. 変わりはない not much difference from before. Here's a grammar point. そうか I see. やっぱり so that must be why you asked that question. やっぱりやめることにした方がいいんじゃない? Shouldn't you decide to quit after all? That after all here is this やっぱり. Shouldn't you decide to quit after all? やっぱりやめることにした方がいいんじゃない? Shouldn't you? So 方がいいんじゃない is that shouldn't you or with the じゃない Shouldn't you decide to quit after all? The ことにした is decide. And the reason it's in the past tense is not because they did decide, it's because we're using 方がいい, which means should do, and you have to have the past tense before that. So ことにした方がいいんじゃない? そうだね. Yeah. 近いうちに soon or before long やめることにします. I am determined to quit soon or before long. Question time. 週末に何をすることにしていますか? 週末に何をすることにしていますか? I'm not going to give you the English translation for that unless you absolutely need it. I'll go one more time. I want to emphasize this one point. 週末に何をすることにしていますか? Example sentence. 日曜日にレッスンストリームをすることにしています. That's what we're doing. 日曜日にレッスンストリームをすることにしています。We are determined and habitually doing lesson streams every Sunday. So, key expressions. Pun is absolutely intended. Absolutely intended. So, this lesson is covering 3 different expressions that use ki. It's just a kanji, but it's a word that you could translate the word on its own as spirit or feeling, or not feeling, but something like that, right? Feeling or spirit. So just ki. There's a bunch of different expressions that use this kanji, I guess, word, whatever you want to call it, ki. And we're covering 3 of them today. The first one we're covering is ni kigatsuku. So kigatsuku is the actual expression. Ni is the particle you're going to use before it to connect whatever comes before it. To kigatsuku, which means to notice something. Kigatsuku. So the first thing we'll cover is verbs. They need to be in their short form. It could be past tense, it could be present tense, whatever, it doesn't matter. But their short form. Then you need the no nominalizer or koto. Either one is fine. So for example, taberu no ni kigatsuku. Notice, eat. Or taberu koto ni kigatsuku. Notice, eat. Right? You'll see in an example sentence why you might say something like that. Okay. For e adjectives, you also need no or koto followed by ni kigatsuku. Kigatsuku is the part that means notice, right? So tanoshii no ni kigatsuku. Notice that it's fun. Tanoshii koto ni kigatsuku. Notice that it's fun. For na adjectives, this is important. You need to have nano ni kigatsuku or na koto ni kigatsuku. That na particle needs to be there, and you also need no or koto. Very easy to miss. Be careful with that one. So, kirei nano ni kigatsuku or kirei na koto ni kigatsuku. Right? Now for nouns, we have 2 different ones here, and I'll explain why. So just the noun followed by ni kigatsuku means that you noticed that thing. You noticed it. So for example, neko ni kigatsuita. I noticed the cat. The next one's different. Noun plus nano ni kigatsuku or noun plus dearu koto ni kigatsuku. This one is used when you notice that something is the thing. Depends on the situation, right? But when the noun would normally be followed by da, you're going to have this. So for example, you have a dog. You have a dog, right? You noticed the dog. There's the dog. I noticed it. Inu ni kigatsuita. I noticed the dog. But now, if you notice that it's the dog that pooped all over the house, ie no naka ni unchi shita no wa inu da, right? You notice it's the dog. Well, if you notice that, you would say, whatever the thing is that the dog did, inu nano ni kigatsuita. I noticed that it was the dog that did that thing. So if there's a whole thing that comes before it and you notice that it was the dog, that's when you're going to use nano ni kigatsuita or dearu koto ni kigatsuita, when you'd have the da. Whereas if you just notice the thing itself, I noticed the dog over there, you just use the noun. Some more example sentences I have will be better. I thought that example would work better, but I didn't have the sentence on the tip of my tongue, so whatever. Anyway, 後ろにいるのに気がつかなかった. So this can also be in the negative, right? So you can say, I didn't notice that you were behind me. So we have a verb, いる, you existed behind me. 後ろにいる. So we need の, に気がつかなかった. I didn't notice that you were behind me. So here's one where we have the noun and we need なのに. So this will make more sense here. If we got rid of this first part, 友達がいい. If we got rid of that and we just said 人に気がついた. I noticed the person, right? But here we notice something about the person. So 友達がいい人なのに気がついた. I noticed that my friend is a good person. That's the difference there, right? レッスンスライドの間違いに気がついた. So here, 間違い is a noun. So we noticed a lesson slide mistake. So this whole thing is treated as a noun, right? Because we have the no, the connecting no. So レッスンスライドの間違い. That's the thing. That's the noun. A lesson slide mistake. に気がついた. I noticed that. So we don't need no here because it's just a single noun it's a complex noun, but it's a single noun that we're modifying with に気がついた. I noticed. By the way, these are all in the past tense because you noticed something. You can use other tenses, but generally speaking, past tense seems to be most common because you noticed something. But you might say something, 気がつくようにします. For example, I'm going to do my best to notice. So it's not only in the past tense. 一本のきゅうりがとても大きいのに気がついた。I noticed that one cucumber was very big. You wrote the sentence. I assume 外にあるきゅうりがちょっとでかくなった一本。Very frequently there will be like one cucumber that is way bigger than all the rest. So 一本のきゅうり one cucumber がとても大きいのに気がついた. So here we have an e adjective 大きい and you need to have the no particle after that. It could also be こと. So 大きいことに気がついた would be fine. 大きいのに気がついた would also be fine. Either one is fine. Our next expression with 気 is noun plus に気をつける which means to be careful of something. A lot of you probably already know 気をつける which just means to be careful. 気をつけてください just means please be careful. But this is be careful of something, right? So it's very similar to 注意する to be careful of something like that, but it's 注意する is a little bit more formal. You'll probably see it on signs and stuff or in announcements on a train. Anyway, 車に気をつけてね. Be careful of cars. So not just 気をつけてください is just generally be careful, but if you want someone to be careful of a specific thing, 車に気をつけてね. Be careful of cars. Very simple. Just the noun に気をつける. 発音に気をつけるようにしている. I'm making it a point ようにする to be careful of my pronunciation. 発音 means pronunciation. 発音に気をつけるようにしている. I'm making it a point to be careful of my pronunciation. The next expression with 気 was noun plus が気に入る which means to be fond of something. Now, be fond of something you might think of as to like something, but it's not quite as strong of an expression as 好き, which is to like. Also, you cannot say that, for example, you like music or you're fond of music in general with this expression. Like you can't say 音楽を気に入っている. You can't say that. You can't use this for general things. You need to use this for something more specific within a general category. For example, the first sentence. 最近クラシックが気に入っている. Recently, I've taken interest in or been fond of classical music. So I can say this because classical music is, so it's more specific. So you need to use 気に入る with specific things. Not big general. Like sports. You might be interested or been fond of recently a sport, soccer or something, but just sports in general. You're going to use 好き. スポーツが好き. With 気に入る, you're going to say something like サッカーが気に入っている. I've been fond of soccer recently, right? Something more specific within that broader category of sports. That's when you can use this, and it's not necessarily as strong or as heavy as a word as 好き is, because you could still use 好き with サッカー, but, you know, it's just a little softer. 文句しか言わない人が気に入らない. Now, 気に入らない is not be fond of, and this feels a little rude if I were to say this to someone who was just complaining constantly, and I said to that person, 文句しか言わない人が気に入らない. I'm not fond of people who do nothing but complain. It's pretty harsh. But you can use it. I'm not fond of something. And that's it. Those are the only examples for that one. There's a few more examples in the dialogue, though. 気に入る. 気に入っている. It's very commonly in the ている form. I wanted to mention that because ている suggests that you still are fond of that thing. So even if you're talking about something in the past, you're generally fond of something for a period of time. So you're going to be using the ている form with this a lot. For example, if I used to like classical music, but I don't really like it now, I might pop this into the past tense, but it would still be ている. クラシックが気に入ってた or 気に入っていた, right? Because there's a period of time where I was interested in or fond of classical music, but then I wasn't. Pop that in the past tense. So it's usually going to be the ている form. But for 気に入らない, it's just 気に入らない. I'm not fond of that thing. Because you're probably not fond of it now either. Dialogue. I'll read it slowly once, then at full speed. Then we'll go over the English translation and get the question time. 本当に? まあ、考えるかな? お金がないのに気がついたから、もうちょっと頑張って てみるかな。しょうがないね。でも体に気をつけてよ。気をつけます。さて、どこに食べに行く？最近ドブドブラーメンってところが気に入っている。いいね。行こう。Full speed。本当に？まあ考えるかな。お金がないのに気がついたからもうちょっと頑張ってみるかな。しょうがないね。でも体に気をつけてよ。気をつけます。さて、どこに食べに行く？最近ドブドブラーメンってところが気に入っている。いいね。行こう English. 本当に Really? So remember in the last section, Yuki was saying that she will quit soon. Talking about her job in that sentence. And I ask, Really? 本当に？まあ、well, 考えるかな。I guess I'll think about it. The かな is I guess. お金がないのに So the thing that she noticed, お金がない That's a verb, right? In the negative. The negative of ある So 金がないのに So you need that no のに気がついた I just realized or I just noticed that I don't have money お金がないのに気がついたから So もうちょっと頑張ってみるかな I'll try and work hard 頑張ってみる Try and work hard for a bit longer, I suppose もうちょっと for a bit longer I suppose is the かな I'll try and work a bit harder one more time まあ考えるかなお金がないのに気がついたからもうちょっと頑張ってみるかな I suppose しょうがないね Nothing you can do about it, eh? でも but 体に気をつけてよTake care of yourself. Be careful of your body health. 気をつけます。I will be careful. さて、well, どこに食べに行く？ Where shall we go to eat? 最近、I guess they were getting ready to go out to eat when this whole conversation started. 最近、recently, ドブドブラーメンってところが気に入っている。I've been liking a place called, that てと a place called てところ。ドブドブラーメン。いいね。行こう Nice, let's go. Question time. 生活で気をつけていることは何ですか？生活で気をつけていることは何ですか？ What is something in your daily life, 生活 that you're being careful of? 最近ご飯が美味しいから食べ過ぎに気をつけている。Recently, rice is delicious to me. This is Yuki-san. So I'm being careful of eating too much. Alright guys, thumbs up を攻撃してください. We're at the end, so please make sure you hit the thumbs up button. There's only 36 people here, but there's 51 likes, so I'm assuming you all have. I appreciate that. チャンネル登録お願いします. Please subscribe if you haven't and hit the bell. Alright guys, have a great night. お疲れ様でした. Thank you so much. See ya! 日本語喋れるようになりたいのか? Hold up. We already did this. We already talked about how you can use our Genki 1 and 2 and now Quartet course to improve your Japanese. じゃあ、これは何のため? We're moving. また引っ越す? No, we're transitioning from Patreon to ToKiniAndy.com. なんで? Look. なるほど。新しいやつの方が綺麗だね。Exactly. It's easier to access, it looks better, it's easier to add new content to old lessons. I'm super excited for it.
私も出てるよ。これからよろしくお願いします。
Come join us on ToKiniAndy.com today and kickstart your Japanese learning experience. You'll have bonus grammar sentence videos, textbook practice videos, listening and shadowing videos, vocabulary videos, tests, and you'll be able to track your progress through fully structured lesson plans. Hope to see you there. よろしくね。